Hello guys, and welcome to another Let's Rant video where we just sit around and talk unscripted about something shitty that's happening in the industry, and we hope that it will stop. And no, today is not actually another Nintendo video, despite my personal stake in that company's success. Today we're going to be talking about something different, and it's going to be a bit of a dead horse topic. Hell, it's been covered enough for that to be the case. And yes, it is the microtransaction video that we're going to be talking about today. And to kick off this video, I'm going to share with you an undeniable fact about microtransactions that made me want to, in part, cover this video. GTA 5. GTA 5 has become the dynamo of the industry. It's topped all of the top 10 countdown videos, and all the YouTube categories still make videos about GTA 5 and GTA Online. It is the ultimate powerhouse, the game that topped all the charts and made all the money and has become the top goal for everyone involved in the industry to aim for. It has become a ridiculous success. It is insane how many copies that game has sold. But there is one fact about GTA 5 that haunts not only itself, but also the industry as a whole. And that is that GTA 5 has made $500 million in microtransactions. And if you forgot your maths in the 3 seconds it took me to say that, let me remind you that $500 million equals $500 million. That is an insane amount of money. That is top level of the multi-millions lottery dollars. That is crazy. And let me tell you, when the industry can clock that sort of cash, everyone sees it. It becomes a milestone for the game. And GTA 5 is the most successful. It's going to be a high outlier for the entire industry. But everyone sees that number that 2K or whoever publishes that damn game made. And it's going to be the number that they continue to aim for because they know that it's possible. Because they know that it can make that amount of money. And I know that some people watching this video will say, well, who the fuck cares about that? It's just microtransactions. I don't buy them. I don't give a fucking shit about them. That's the thing. Okay, that's your opinion. That's fine that you say that you don't care about this. But don't go around and assume that everyone thinks the same thing, or convincing other people that they shouldn't give a shit about this, because squeaking your wheels about why this is still shitty is the only thing that actually changes anything. You have to continue saying it's shitty, or else it's going to continue to get worse and worse. That's why, people who shouldn't be apathetic about it should not continue to be apathetic. They should actually be fucking pissed that things that used to be free in the game that you bought back in the day are now being charged to you for extra money, or else fuck you. That's the thing. Okay, that's the objective fact of this fucking situation that we're in. And I know that some people have been calling about this bullshit, saying that we need government regulation now that it's spiraled into another complete tier of shittiness. Or that someone needs to come legislate this, or something needs to fucking change from an outside source of the goddamn industry so that this starts making sense again. I don't actually think that's going to happen. Or if it's going to even be addressed by the government, it's going to be like page 7 of the newspaper level news. It's going to be backdoored on like another bill that has a completely different purpose. It's just going to be swept in without anyone noticing. That's what's going to happen if this gets legislated. But even if that starts happening in the government, hell, all that money that those publishers made, they're going to dump that into lobbying to kill it, and the politicians don't have any stake in this industry to force them to care about this issue, so it's going to be killed pretty damn quickly by the lobbyists who say the same fucking explanations we hear all the time. If this goes to the government, lobbyists have to come in. Those lobbyists are going to say the same explanations, the same excuses that they've been saying to us for fucking years. They're going to say everything's optional, everything's cosmetic, it's actually not a big an issue, it doesn't actually affect the quality of the games. Look at all these review scores that we've had from games that have microtransactions in them. Look, IGN still likes the game, GameSpot likes the game. You can still enjoy the game without the microtransactions because these fucking, AAA reviewers say that the game is still good. And that's bullshit because those guys have to be very soft on their reviewing. They have to, soften all the objective points of the game. They can't go around saying that every game is 2 out of 10 because that affects their goddamn advertisers. That affects their listings with the companies that give them their games to actually review. They have to soften those things because they have to be the most objective and the most fair about everything. They have to be snowflakes about it because the industry will kill them otherwise. And that's the bullshit that's actually not going to come up when they start using these points as points to prove that this shit isn't actually shit, when we all know that it is. They're never going to bring up that, 7 years ago in the 360 era, this didn't exist, or this didn't happen, or the only thing that we had to worry about were season passes and DLC, which is still shit and standard in every fucking game that they put out. That whole thing. But now that all this other shit has happened, all the shitty shit that used to be shit has now become buried in the successive levels of shit, and now is not noticed, because nobody cares when there's fucking gambling-based microtransactions to yell at. No one cares that, Nintendo put out, 5 campaign packs for one game and sold them individually for $60, which is the cost of a new game that's actually more expensive than the game they put it in the first place. No one gives a shit about that because the microtransactions from EA have become more shit. That's how the news works. It's the biggest shit that gets the fucking show. That's a whole nother debate that we could have later. And the debate I want to have now about microtransactions is a whole nother thing about them. Every person, every fucking gamer, every person who cares and actually has, no stake in this so they can be objective about things, every commenter and person with an opinion says that they hate microtransactions. Or they say they don't care about microtransactions. And that's a good thing to say, but you say that because it's socially acceptable and socially positive to say that. That's your social face that you put on. And everyone says that they hate microtransactions, but you have to actually follow through with that. And there are going to be some people who always say, oh, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, but they go home and they buy the microtransactions for their favorite games. Right now it's Destiny 2. I'm sure it'll be Call of Duty when the next Call of Duty starts coming around and people start getting into that again. They'll pay for the microtransactions in their favorite games because they want to support the game. Even though you already supported the game by buying it in the first place, along with the Season Pass and the DLC and the fucking Legacy Edition of the game that you just bought, you still want to support it, and you still want to give them all your money because it's the fucking game that's amazing. But when people say that they want to support a movie, they just go see the movie and they buy the DVD. They don't donate $70 more on top of that for no reason. And that's essentially what you're paying for with a microtransaction. Why does the film industry still have exorbitant fucking budgets? I'm sure some of them have hit numbers like $500 and $800 million to make the fucking movie. But they still make the money back in the box office, and all you have to pay for is to watch the movie. You might have to pay an extra fee or two to see it in 3D or in a better theater, but you pay the money to go see the movie and you see the whole movie. Why does that happen in film that always had these ridiculous budgets, but the ridiculous budgets of games have just come out to 9 figures in the last 7 years, and we gotta have this fucking content menagerie of a fucking product shitstorm that you still have to pay all this fucking money for? Why is that the fucking case? Why are things so frickin' different? I'll tell you why. Film industry is way more regulated because it's existed a hell of a lot longer. There's more stake in the politicians to actually regulate that. All this video game stuff is moving too fucking fast for the politicians to see or care about. And that's, again, if it gets legislated in the first place. It can get killed very frickin' easily by the very points that I brought up in this anti-microtransactions video. We can't keep saying that we hate the damn shit, and also in our private time buy the damn things anyway, because that contributes to the frickin' problem. That tells people that it's actually marketable and they should continue to do this. It is product that they almost have to put no effort into. Hell, that $500 million from GTA 5, I don't know what the heck the microtransaction in that game for is, but let's just assume for the sake of an ignorant example of what it could be, let's say that it was all gun skins and car skins, or maybe new costumes. $500 million, that might cost the developer another $200,000, $100,000 to put together. I don't know what the actual cost is, but let's just say that it's actually really cheap on their part. That means that the microtransactions that they made are almost clear frickin' profit. They don't need $500 million to continue to have the studio open. They're not employing 50,000 people at fucking executive level. They're paying developers who have to be paid in crunch time, in non-paid overtime. They have to pay beta testers that they get off the street at 20 years old, and they pay a frickin' pittance. They're not fucking poor. They have the ability to continue existing. Of course they do. They survived the firestorms of the fucking video game budget explosion. That's how it works. Nobody has skin in the game still needs to worry about being closed. I mean, goddamn. It's not like Rockstar is a fucking beggar on the street. They get paid by 2K Games to provide all the goddamn profit for everything. And that's why you should never believe or defend these companies on the basis of poverty. The server costs are not an equitable issue to the insane amounts of money that they made on the microtransactions to keep them open. You don't need to sell every person $100 worth of microtransactions to keep the multiplayer open. That's ridiculous. It's a server cost. You know, a server, a bank of computers that they rent for the space, or they keep them themselves. They have to pay the maintenance on them. They don't have to buy new servers all the goddamn time. It's not impossible to marry the server costs with having no microtransactions. Why is the $60 price point not a fucking equitable issue to your business costs? Why do you need to sell 5 million copies of the Legacy Edition to keep the doors open? You don't. That's completely insane and absurd. But people still defend them on that. They need to have the money to keep making video games, and we have to continue to support them and throw our entire wallets at them to keep them going. You know, does Bungie really deserve it after having a part in this shitty business practice? Do they deserve $100 more just to keep buying bullets for your gun in a hypothetical future where you can actually buy microtransaction bullets that are better than all the other bullets in the game? Is that the case? Because let me tell you something, the rise of the loot box microtransaction, the point of the story where you're not even paying money for product anymore like you used to with regular microtransactions, now you're just paying for a promise of content. You're paying for fucking tiny season passes. Season passes, you know, those old shitty concept things where you used to pay them for the promise of DLC, and that not even all the case. Like, that was not always the case. Sometimes they could pull and evolve and say, oh, this is season 2 of the DLC. You have to pay extra money even though you have the season pass because it's season 2. So, even with the fucking promises you get, it's like, it could be half-baked promises. Why do you keep buying the season passes for this thing when you have so many examples to the contrary of them turning out to be complete crap? Oh, I wanted to support my favorite game again. You already paid them $60 for the game. Hell, you probably paid them $100 because you got the Legacy Edition. You don't need to keep giving them money to the point that you actually spent more on the game you bought than the console that you're playing it on. We are actually approaching that point. That is ridiculous! Do you not realize that we are getting to such a point of absurdity, of greed on the part of our publishers that make the games, that we're actually gonna start paying more for the games for the fucking console than the console itself? And that's not even considering the point that the consoles have such shitty storage ideas right now that my Xbone right there can only store about 6 games on it before I have to start deleting things to make space for more games. How the fuck does that make any sense? But that's where we're at right now. In an age where we could easily have everything on PC to make things have more sense to them, we're getting to a point where the console is actually an inferior product to the games we're buying for them, just because of the avarice of the people that keep making them. And if you need another frickin' example of why this is a shit practice, remember, this wasn't how it worked 7 to 9 years ago. You can get a 360 now for goddamn cheap, and play 500 games that aren't shitty and have every frickin' thing behind a paywall. You can go out and do that, and those games existed, and I don't know, 30% of the developers are still around, and they're able to survive because, and they didn't charge you all this extra money for shit. And you could definitely say, well, that's a ridiculous comparison. Do you know how, costs have exploded nowadays? Yeah, fine. Okay, the costs have exploded, but so has inflation. The dollar has lost the same amount of value it had in that same time span. So, it's not like there isn't a reason for why these costs have exploded. It's just the natural progression of the economy. And yeah, you can still say, well, that's another ridiculous comparison. Inflation doesn't explain all the added costs. What added costs? The only thing that has actually changed between the 360 and the Xbone period are the graphics. The 4K shit. The 4K games that can't even be 4K on even the highest of costs of machines, of consoles. You still can't do 4K gaming, and yeah, you can sort of do 4K gaming, but there's always caveats for it. What the hell has actually changed to justify the insane cost hike? What has changed to make it realistic enough that someone might actually spend $150 to $200 on one game? And this is going to continue to happen because it only happens in the space of our AAA games. Because the AAA games are the almost guaranteed moneymaker. They are the big summer film equivalent of video games. They're guaranteed to make money, so that's the only sphere of gaming where it's almost a guarantee that you'll see them because you're going to be guaranteed to sell the game and everyone's going to want to buy it. So you have the biggest audience for your microtransactions. No one puts microtransactions in the zombie survival multiplayer shooter on Steam number 568 because no one's playing that game. No one's playing the game, so where's the audience for the microtransactions? It only happens in the AAA games because that's where the guaranteed audience is. And it's going to continue to get shittier and it's going to continue to get worse because loot boxes have proven so successful in the past year. Like, this hasn't even been around for 2 years yet. That every freaking new game coming out is going to do it and have these randomized microtransactions because you're not even spending money for product anymore. You're spending money for the promise of one. That they can immediately turn around and say, fuck you on the promise. You don't actually get a guarantee of anything goddamn squat when you buy a fucking loot box. You get the product, and they're giving you random product. Like, it could be literally anything. They could give you a can of beans for fucking money when you suggested a cool, like, silver guitar axe thing. They could give you a can of beans and say, there you go, that's your frickin' money spent. Want to try again? And then you try again, and then you get a lemon. Then you get a lemon. Like, I didn't want a fucking lemon, I wanted the guitar. And then you spend another 5 microtransactions and you get 3 clocks that are different skins. That's where we're at now. That's where we're at. We're paying money for the promise of things, and that's how gambling works. We're paying for the promise of something. It could be a promise delivered in a middle finger, and you paid to get flipped off. Like, that's such a stupid thing, but it's the thing that's happening. It's the thing that happened in Destiny 2. It's the thing that happened in Overwatch. It's the thing that's going to happen in Assassin's Creed Origins and Call of Duty World War II. It's going to happen in the next AC game. It's going to happen in the next COD game. It's going to happen in the next Battlefield game. It's going to happen in every next AAA game that comes out. Because they're successful and because people keep buying them. It's because people keep defending the microtransaction. They keep defending the companies behind them. People keep not caring, and it becomes a dead horse issue because we all just got used to it being around. And the only one that can fix anything is an outside source with authority over it. An outside source that can also be lobbied to death and also sued to stop the decision because that's how politics works now. It's not decided by the politicians, it's decided by lawyers. I mean, how ridiculous has this entire situation gone? How ridiculously shitty have our lives gone? Personally, I might not even want to buy any 8th gen anything anymore. Like, seriously, it's a fucking cost black hole. Back before, you had a perfect idea of what you were gonna buy and how much it was going to cost when you decided to buy it. And yet, you still have that now, and you can easily decide not to spend the microtransactions, but what happens when the microtransactions start seeping into gameplay, and you have to start paying money for bullets in the multiplayer, the high damage bullets, so that you don't keep getting immediately destroyed by everybody else who paid all the fucking money for all the bullets, who bought the best guns. You know, what happens when that happens? Oh, you can't actually play the game because you're not spending the extra money. Well, fuck you. I guess we got our $60 anyway. That's where we're going. That's what our future is going to look like. Like, you can say right now, oh, it's cosmetic, it doesn't matter. What happens when it does matter? What happens when we can't actually get the things that we need to play the game because we're not spending the extra money to buy the shit in the first place? What happens when you can't actually play the next Destiny 2 that you buy without spending another $30 on the game that you just bought for $60? And hell, since we're imagining a hypothetical future, let's just drop $60 altogether. It's $70 now. They needed extra money for the server costs that don't actually exist because they still have the same servers from 5 years ago, because they don't need to keep buying extra servers to keep the fucking things running. That's not how servers work. They're not fucking tampons. They're not crackers. They're not disposable. Stop using server costs as an excuse for things, okay? The audience of video games is not growing that sporadically that you need fucking new servers every time you make a fucking game, okay? That's not how the things work. That's not how reality works. It's $70 now. Guess what? The price of games has gone up to $70 because of some bullshit explanation. That's how it's going now. And guess what? People are going to pay it anyway because they need the new games, because they're still excited about them, because hype hasn't died. Hype is a concept that will never ever die, so they keep paying the money for it. At the end of the day, I have to ask, why am I keep spending all my money on these games? Why am I spending a month's worth of paychecks on the console, the game, the headset, and everything to continue to play one game, 2 games? Oh, I can only buy 2 games this month. Well, I guess I'm sad now. Why am I continuing to spend the money when I could have almost an equally good chance of having a good time by playing all the PS3 games that I haven't played? The PS3 has probably 300 games on it. You haven't played all 300 of the games. Go play them. I'll go play them. Because you can find better games than the shit they're producing now, just existing in games from previous libraries you haven't played. PS2 games, you haven't played all of them because it's impossible to. You can't play all of the 1,000 games the PS2 has. And yeah, people are gonna always be excited for the new thing out there. That's how the new thing works. That's why everyone went to see it at the time, around the time that this video was made. You know, that's the reason, because it's the new thing. No one is going to get that type of excitement from watching, you know, an old action movie from the 80s, even though that old action movie might actually be better than the movie you went to watch that just came out this weekend. Okay, I'm kind of tangenting like crazy here, but to end the video, I'll kind of just wrap up the points that I wanted to make. Microtransactions are shitty, but they're shit that's still around because people keep buying them. And microtransactions have become such a standard in AAA gaming that there's a huge number of people that say they don't give a shit about the game. That's fine, that's your opinion, but you should stop convincing other people to not give a shit, because we should continue to give a shit about these issues. We should continue to give a shit because these games are coming out probably most of the time as sequels to larger things. And now we're finding ourselves paying $10 in fictional currency, $10 to buy fictional currency, where we got the fictional currency and the product behind that virtual currency, for free in the last 2 iterations of the game. That's the objective point of this whole video, is that people should stop saying that they don't give a shit when the thing that you're buying for money now used to be free before things went to shit. And the advent of gambling-based microtransactions is only making the situation worse, and it's only going to be a matter of time before the industry says, okay, we're selling you the better guns for money now, let's just give you the better here, you can just buy the best stats now. Here, you don't actually have to pay the game, here's a level 100 gun for $5. How about that? Here, you can go murder the entire game and you don't actually have to play it. What happens when that happens? And what happens when that extends to the multiplayer? Guess what? You just ruined the multiplayer by creating a multi-tiered level of player exactly like you already think exists, because the whales are the only ones winning at the multiplayer because they are the ones who bought all the guns. What happens when that happens? Oh, it happened because people accepted microtransactions, said they didn't care about them, so the industry just kept making them. It's not a situation that's going to go away on its own, and it doesn't seem like the publishers behind any of this shit are ready to let it go, because they're making money hand over fist about it. You may say that you still hate the microtransactions and want to be behind them, but when your favorite fucking game comes out and it has microtransactions, guess where your money's going? It's going right into that game. Here's another $15 worth of virtual currency because I love the fucking game so much. Again, you don't have to support a game you like that much for that much money. Okay, you want to support it, you don't have to give them $150 for nothing, because that's how much work they actually spent to make the thing you're buying, or in some cases, actually not buying, because you're just paying for gambling rates, for gambling percentages, and the person that you're trying to support might actually just say, fuck you, we got yours, and you can have a donkey face. That's what your reward is for giving us 50 cents. A donkey face. Or how about a giant splotch of black spray paint? Let's give you that for $2.50. Oh, you want this horse skin here so that it looks like a giant candy cane? Well, that'll cost you $5.50. Hey, you want this giant spaceship that looks like a toaster? Well, guess what? $11.50. Hey, you want this gun that's a level 557 gun that you can just have when you're level 2? Hey, how about you give us, like, I don't know, $3 in virtual currency. We'll say that we'll give you a water pistol, and then you can try another 7 times to get that gun you want, and then we'll just give you a bunch of clocks. How about that? Yeah, it's a hilarious joke now, but that'll actually happen in the future. How about that for your Nostradamuses out there? Can you predict that will happen? Well, guess what? I'm predicting it now, and it's definitely gonna happen because no one gives enough of a shit to make it stop. Okay, it's not going to stop. It's a way for these companies to make millions of dollars for doing absolutely nothing. Who the hell would want that to stop? There is no business sense short enough in the world for that to not happen. So, we may say that we hate the microtransactions, but we actually have to follow through. Your favorite AAA game that's coming out, don't give them microtransactions, because that's how this shit continues. Okay, you have to say stop. Okay, I bought the game, that's it. Okay, no more money, no more, more on the DLC. Maybe don't get the extra map pack. Maybe don't pay for Xbox Live. You don't actually need that multiplayer, and I know that you really want it because it's your favorite game, but just don't buy it, okay? Don't pre-order it. Don't buy the season pass. Don't buy everything that this game has to offer because it's not worth it. It's not actually worth it. We don't need another NBA 2K18 because people can't stop themselves. And I know this isn't going to stop the concept of hype. I know that this isn't going to stop anyone from actually supporting and paying more money for their favorite game. But it needs to be said and it needs to be reiterated that this shit is shit and that the way to stop the shit is to stop making it worse on ourselves. There's a very good reason that this issue has expanded it everywhere and into worse stages of what it already was, then actually rescinded because it has market share. It has marketability for the people who are making it, and it makes a lot of money, okay? Remember, they're paying, their developers a pittance to create skins and animations that they're selling for millions of dollars because they're not actually selling them. They're selling the promise of them. And you behind the computer, you might ignore this. The reviewers from IGN might ignore this. Everyone might ignore this. But we as a collective audience of video game people should not continue to ignore this. It should affect review scores. It should affect your Game of the Year placements. It should affect every opinion that you have about video games when they do this microtransaction bullshit and when it starts affecting the game itself instead of just being costumes and music. You can't continue to use the whole "it's just cosmetic" card when it starts becoming gameplay-centric things that they're selling to you for extra money. And I suppose that I'm remembering that I said I was going to conclude this video pretty soon, so I guess I should. Anyway, microtransactions are bad. Even though it's your favorite game ever, you shouldn't actually pay more money on top of the money that you already spent because you already supported the game by buying it in the first place. Those companies are lying to you that say they need the extra money to keep going because they want your extra money for doing no work, okay? Loot boxes are getting worse, and if people continue to keep buying them and continue to pay for the gambling rights of the game they already paid money to have, like, you already paid, it's like you paid for the casino that you're going in to spend more money on top of that. That's how ridiculous this is. At least when gambling sites on the internet try to steal your money, at least they're free games. I mean, at least they're free, even though they don't pay out, and what they actually pay out is incredibly pathetic. So, that's the whole thing. I'm tired of people saying that they don't care about this shit, because it's fine if you don't care, but you shouldn't assume that everybody doesn't care, and you shouldn't be convincing those other people to also not care. Because, yeah, you might not pay for the microtransactions, but other people do, and we need this problem to go away, so we need to actually become activists to make it go away. Okay, that's the thing. Again, with most of my videos, you need to keep squeaking your wheels, or else this shit gets shittier, and the shit is already getting shittier. This is the recent era of the loot box. The loot box, I mean, that's the whole thing. It's a whole new level of shit. So we're already at the point where our fallacy of slippery slope has actually become true. The slippery slope actually exists in real life, and we're already falling down it. And it might not stop people from buying the guaranteed audience AAA games, but it's certainly going to affect my purchasing decision. Hell, why would I pay $60 for your game and $40 for the fucking season pass when $100 can get me 12 Xbox 360 games on Amazon? Why would I pay that kind of money when there's more content to be had that is less shitty about getting into my wallet, more entertainment value, and probably a funner game than what the hell you're offering me now? Okay, it's probably going to be a better game than Shadow of War. It's definitely going to be a better game than NBA 2K18. So why would I spend the money? Hell, I'll just go back there. I haven't played all the 360 games available. I'm going to go play those games because they're still good and they're still playable. Just, fuck you and your microtransactions. If you can get your $150 from someone else. I'm not gonna give you that money. That's fucking insane. Go fuck yourself. Okay, I'm not gonna buy 3 goddamn video games and end up having to spend more on the games than my console. So, that's just me. And like I said, this is just my thought on microtransactions. I know this video has gone a lot longer than the usual ones. I'll try to cut it off soon, but like I said, microtransactions are shit. Everyone says that, but we need to follow through on that if we're ever going to have an effect on them. Otherwise, you know, what it's going to be next time is the level 500 sniper rifle being sold to you for $25 worth of gambling tickets in a game that you paid $70 for. Remember, you paid $70 for it. Or you paid $120 to get the Legacy Edition, you know, hypothetically. And that's shit. That's shit that didn't happen 8 years ago. You know, are you ready to see more of that? Because it's going to happen if you continue to pay for it. Paving the way for everyone to get shittier because more shittier equals more money. I guess a good concluding note would be to say that whole thing again, is that none of these companies are your friend. Platinum Games is not your friend, Naughty Dog is not your friend, Bungie is not your friend, Activision is definitely not your friend, Ubisoft and Electronic Arts are already shitty people, and Nintendo is definitely not your friend. So stop paying them so that they can act like your friend for 5 minutes. They don't actually care about you. You are a wallet on legs to them. So anyway, I'm Bosscinerator. That is my viewpoint on the whole issue. The entire issue, now that I've gone into half an hour of Crazy Town on this rant video. And I guess victory for gamers. Remember, don't spend the extra money. That's how they trick you. Have a good night.